Welcome back. One of Port Aransas' 8 wonders celebrates its 100th anniversary this year. We're talking about the rock jetties, which separate Mustang Island and St. Joseph's Island. And just like the new project to deepen and widen the Corpus Christi ship channel, the jetties were touted as a way to boost the local economy. And as Lee Sosley reports, the story starts way back in the early 1850s when the federal government built a lighthouse on the Lydia Ann Channel.
And that same decade, the Coast Guard built this life-saving station on Mustang Island to rescue shipwrecked mariners trying to get through the shallow pass to Corpus Christi Bay. Now, the problem was the pass kept moving. Prevailing winds and currents were steadily pushing it south about 200 feet a year. Now, when the lighthouse was built, it was at the top of the channel, but when the government finally got around to building the jetties in 1890, the pass had shifted several miles south to the small fishing village of Tarpon on the northern tip of Mustang Island. And according to Bill Behrens, a docent and member of the Port Aransas Museum Board, it was quite an undertaking, requiring men, mules, and horses, and steam engines.
The North Jetty, they actually brought the rocks to it on barges and then had cranes on barges to lift the rocks into the North Jetty. But the South Jetty, they had the railroad all the way out to the end of it. We actually have a picture that shows the steam engine at the end of the railroad, at the end out into the ocean. Putting in pilings and extending the railroad. The jetties have to have a gradation in them. They have to be on a very fine grained base. And they actually used brush back in those days, and then small rocks on top of that. If they used the large rocks like on top of the jetties now, they would just sink into the sand and disappear.
So they started with what they called man rocks, 40 to 50-pound chunks of granite like this one that a man could pick up.
There were workers that would pick the rocks up out of the railroad cars and just drop them beside them and build up the jetties until they got to where they had to use bigger and bigger rocks, and then they would use cranes, steam cranes, to lift them up and drop them in.
It was grueling work, 12 to 14 hours a day, that left men with stooped shoulders and raw, bloody hands. Many of them were immigrants from Eastern Europe, and the locals didn't much cotton to them.
There was only one bar in town, and they were fairly exclusive. They didn't want any of these Eastern Europeans to come and drink at the bar.
So a young entrepreneur, seeing an opportunity, built a small bar on a barge and anchored it near the work site.
And so they could just walk out or take a little rowboat out to the barge. And so he opened that as the Deepwater Saloon. And the European immigrants would go there instead and quench their thirst.
The jetties were finally completed in the year 1919, the same year that a huge hurricane hit and destroyed the wharf and cotton warehouse the government had built on Harbor Island. But that's another story. And if you'd like to hear about that, or why the folks of Tarpon changed the name of their community to Port Aransas, you'll find it all at the Port Aransas Museum. They have hundreds of photographs documenting the town's history and some fascinating artifacts, like the Fresnel lens from the lighthouse and the bell from the steam engine used to build the jetties.
It doesn't have the clapper in it anymore. If it had the clapper in it, you would hear it when it would be in the air, and it would drive you crazy. But it does have a nice ring to it.
I'm Lee Sosley, KRIS 6 News.